Japanese vintage classics. Not all of them though. The first book is actually a Korean classic by Kim Man-jung, and it's called The Nine Cloud Dream. This is the Penguin Classics edition. And I don't know how many Korean classics were actually translated to English. I know there's one more, which is the story of Hong Kil-dong, but I haven't bought that one. And this was, by the way, translated with an introduction and notes by Heinz Insu Fenkel. And let me read you the back, because there's not a lot that I know about it. And by the way, look at this art on the cover. Gosh, I love it. Okay, so Korea's prized literary masterpiece, a Buddhist journey questioning the illusions of human life, presented in a vivid new translation by Penn/Hemingway finalist Heinz Insu Fenkel. Written in 17th century Korea, this classic novel's wondrous story begins when a young monk living on a sacred Lotus Peak in China succumbs to the temptation of 8 fairy maidens. For doubting his master's Buddhist teachings, the monk is forced to endure a strange punishment, reincarnation as the most ideal of man. On his journey through his new life full of material, martial and sensual accomplishments beyond his wildest dreams, each success brings him closer and closer to finally comprehending the fundamental truths of Buddha's teachings. Like says Siddhartha, The Nine Cloud Dream is an unforgettable tale exploring the meaning of a good life and the virtue of living simply with mindfulness. So that's really interesting, and it kind of sounds right up my alley, because especially in the last few months, I've read a lot of like philosophy and philosophical teachings, and I guess I've been in search of great happiness in life, and I don't know, I'm just kind of interested in that. Like, that's what I'm interested in these days. Okay, so let's move on. I'll do some page turning. By the way, this is a floppy paperback, and I always appreciate a good floppy paperback. Okay, so next. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima. I'm pretty sure that he is an LGBT writer that served like a very tragic fate. And look at how beautiful this book is, by the way. This is why I was interested in like the Japanese vintage classics collection, because mainly of the covers, but also because of, you know, the stories. But when I was choosing like which editions I want to buy, of course I chose these. In the back it says, at 13, Noboru was convinced of his own genius. And I have to read you the... Okay, let me show you how it looks like when you open it. And yeah, I'll read you the synopsis. A band of savage 13-year-old boys reject the adult world as illusionary, hypocritical and sentimental, and train themselves in a brutal callousness they call objectivity. When the mother of one of them begins only see the legs of them. Okay. Maybe that was a bit of a spoiler there. Next up is the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, also in the same edition. You can kind of see how similar they look. And I want to get into more of Haruki Murakami's works, and specifically his more surrealistic writing, because I feel like that would suit me more. I've read Norwegian Wood this year and didn't like it. So let me read you what it's about. Toru Okada's cat has disappeared. His wife is growing more distant every day. Then there are the increasingly explicit telephone calls he has recently been receiving. As this compelling story unfolds, the tidy suburban realities of Okada's fake and blameless life, spent cooking, reading, listening to jazz and opera, and drinking beer at the kitchen table, are turned inside out. He embarks on a bizarre journey, guided by a succession of characters, each with a tale to tell. So, this book is longer for sure. It's, I think, 700 something pages. Yeah, 606 pages. I said 700, right? I meant 606 pages. And, wait, I'm holding it upside down. And this is probably a book that I'm most interested in by Haruki Murakami. You can see on the spine it has like a little moon, and then you have this art that is just so interesting, and I don't know, I just love the art. Like, this is the book that actually got me into buying the vintage classics. This right here, you've got like the old telephone here, and then this kind of seems like a sword that's in a well, and then you have this wind up bird, and it's so interesting. And you've got like the patterns here that kind of remind me of like traditional Japanese patterns. And then like, here you have a baseball bat and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cats. I actually haven't noticed the cats before. I've looked at this book multiple times now and I've never noticed the cats. And you've got the rest of the bird, and like, I don't know, I just like these additions a lot. For sure. I'm holding it upside down. It is what it is. Okay. tragically taut and unflinching examination of the darkest recesses of the human soul and what makes the most ordinary person do the unimaginable. Translated by Stephen Snyder. So, I guess I'm really interested in like these books lately, like what makes a human human, and can you even like call people that make like unimaginable acts humans? Are they humans? You know, I'm not explaining this well, but yeah, it very much has like the same theme that the Human Acts by Han Kang have, like those kind of like really dark themes exploring human nature. Yeah. My only complaint about these editions are that they're quite hard to open and quite hard to read, which means that once I'll be reading them, the spine will crack, unfortunately, and I don't like when the spine cracks in my paperbacks. It's just, it is what it is. Because, you know, like the editions are so beautiful, I don't want to ruin them by, you know, just cracking the spine like countless times. Yeah, and even though if I read the book very carefully, like I'm one of those people who would literally read a book like this, like almost like not opening it, just so I wouldn't ruin the spine. I know that certain people like don't care, they just open the book all the way, and I'm like, oh. When I see that, but yeah. Okay, we've got 2 more books. They're quite short. One of them is a book by Haruki Murakami, South of the Border, West of the Sun. And I got interested in this book because it was on like a list in my high school. Basically, when you finish high school in my country, in the Czech Republic, you have to go through a state exam, and for that exam you have to read 20 books, and then you pick one and you talk about it during your examination, only for like, I don't know, 10 minutes perhaps. And this was on the list. I didn't choose it at the time because I chose other books for some reason, I don't know, but I'm kind of curious to see like if this book was recommended to high schoolers, how like explicit it will be, because Haruki Murakami is sometimes known for having these like really weird explicit contents in his book. So and this is, by the way, also the Vintage Books edition. South of the Border, West of the Sun. As soon as I started reading what it's about, my camera died. Okay. Growing up in the suburbs in post-war Japan, it seemed to Hajime that everyone but him had brothers and sisters. His sole companion was Shimamoto, also an only child. Together they spent long afternoons listening to her father's record collection. But when his family moved away, the two lost touch. Now Hajime is in his 30s. After a decade of drifting, he has found happiness with his loving wife and 2 daughters, and success running a jazz bar. Then Shimamoto appears. She is beautiful, intense, enveloped in mystery. Hajime is catapulted into the past, putting at risk all he has in the present. If this book will contain cheating, I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be so mad. But let's see, like, I don't know, like, so far it doesn't really seem like something that, like, a high schooler should, like, really read or, like, understand. I don't know. It has only 182 pages. So, we'll see. We'll see how I like it. I don't think that this book is really surrealistic, if I'm not mistaken, so we'll see, we'll see. South of the Border, West of the Sun. Alright. The last book that I have here is actually a novella that's thicker than the previous book I showed you. And it's Dawn Shard. By Brennan fantasy books with crazy amount of world building and difficult to understand magic system. Yeah, those are my reading tastes these days. So this actually is a novella that takes place after the third book, so I will not be reading the back because I don't want to spoil myself. There's also a novella that takes place after the second book, and I already have it. I think it's in the Arcanum Unbound, is that what it's called? Book that has like a bunch of novellas in it, and this was the only novella that I was missing from the series. Of course, the final book in the series hasn't been published yet, and I think it will come out next year, so I'll be reading the series up until then. I want to read the last book like as soon as it comes out, so that means that I need to get through a lot of pages, because you know, like if each book has 1,000 pages, at least that's over 400,000 pages plus the novellas, and this is a novella that has like 244 pages, so you know, even the novellas are quite long. But I'm not complaining. So, if you don't know what the series is about, how would I even describe it to you? You follow multiple POVs. One POV is a soldier. Let's call him a soldier. One POV is, without any spoilers, a noble lady that's coming from not a very important house, and she wants to see the princess of the realm to become a scholar. And the other POV is like a noble man that used to be a very great warrior, and he still is. That's all I'm gonna say. And you also follow his son. And I definitely did not make the series justice by describing it. You also follow sometimes random characters in the world that give you like a different information from all kinds of perspectives. The world building is crazy. Like, I've read Mistborn, and that book has a large amount of world building. This series has an insane amount of world building, like even for a fantasy book, I would say. And I love the writing, I love the story. It starts off kind of slow, but it's worth it. And Brandon Sanderson always likes to like have a really crazy plot twist at the end of his books, which kind of make you like rethink everything you've just read. And it's so good. Like, The Way of Kings, which is the first book in the series, was my favorite book of 2022 so far. So like, it's just amazing. Okay, it's amazing. I love it. Alright, so that will be it for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I don't know when I'm going to do the next book haul. Maybe soon. It depends if I'm going to buy more books again, and I've been so good at like not spending money this last year, and I feel like I'm about to like mess it up completely. So anyways, thank you so much